call this meeting of the North Adams City Council to order for February 25th, 2020. This meeting is being recorded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hopkins?
Here.
Blackmer?
Here.
Bona? Here. Harpen?
Here.
Forrest?
Here.
Lamb?
Here.
Moulton? Here. Sweeney?
Here.
Wilkinson?
Here.
Please stand for a moment of silence tonight, remembering Joyce Brooks, a teaching assistant at Braden Elementary School. And now the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes from February 11, 2020. Is there a motion?
Motion approved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain. I wasn't here.
Hearing of visitors. If anyone wishes to address the council on an agenda item tonight, please, raise your hands. Mr. Sapienza, I think you were first. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, Brian Sapienza, 113 Pleasant Street, North Adams. This is in regard to paper number 11,840, the pillar art. I think it's about time that this pillar art situation be put to rest. We should not waste any more time on the conflict over the art once known as the pillar art on the Marshall Street pillars. It appears that neither side of the conflict is willing to give in to the other. This was made apparent to me at the last week General Government Committee meeting. This whole conflict is becoming a war of wills between the two parties and a pathway that MoCA dissenters are using to show their dislike for the MoCA institution, which, without, there would be no North Adams as it is today. I think that bringing this matter to the city solicitor would cost a large amount of money, and we'd eat up the limited budget allowed for the council for legal advice from the solicitor. I would suggest that the Pillars artist bring forth a proposal for a new project in an alternate location in front of the North Adams Public Arts Commission. Again, this whole matter is a waste of the council's time and energy. We need to focus on more pressing issues like trying to find ways to fund a new public safety building. Our police officers and firefighters deserve a better place to live and work while they are on duty protecting the citizens of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Former Councilor Buddington. Force of habit.
This won't come as a surprise, but I support the Berkshire Scenic Mountain Act. This would give a little bit of protection to some of our higher elevations, and even though it doesn't affect a large area, it does so very easily since the language is already written into state law. So please support it.
Thank you. I saw a few other hands up and back. Ellen. And then Amber. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Ellen Janis at 46 Davenport Street in North Adams. I'm here tonight in support of 11,859 and 11,860, the letter from Councilor Lamb addressing safety issues and in particular the Traffic Commission's recommendation to put stop signs at the intersection of East Main, Pleasant, and Minor Streets. As I think you all know, there was a really dangerous and scary incident with a 5th grader being hit by a car in that intersection, which I think for a lot of people has brought to mind all the safety issues that pedestrians encounter in the city. I'm hoping that we can all, as citizens, city council, the mayor, the police, can work together to make this city much more walkable and safe. I think there's lots of things that we can do. Councilor Lamb's letter is a great start, and I really hope you guys will consider these issues seriously and act on them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amber Busa, North Adams. I'm here as the Executive Director of the Northern Berkshire Community Coalition to just state my enthusiasm for the possibility and the potential of the land on American Legion Drive. As the director of this organization that has a long-standing commitment and place in this community, we are excited about the opportunity to be a part of the competitive process if this land is released for a home for our organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands? Mr. Smith.
Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. This is in reference to what this young lady just talked about. It's about the stop sign up in my area where I reside. Some people have said, well, you put a stop sign there, they're going to pass it anyway, because that's what a lot of drivers do. I walk a lot around the city, and they do that. But my take is this. If you put a stop sign there, when they're coming down East Main, there's a real steep grade, and they come down there rather fast. If they know there's a stop sign there, at least that vehicle will slow down. So if there's any kind of accident, it probably won't be a fatal one. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, please. Just your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Sarah Farnsworth. I live at 244 East Main Street at that intersection, literally, and I just want to add my support to the stop signs.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council on an agenda item before us tonight? You'll have an additional opportunity to speak at the end of the meeting if it's about something else. All right, thank you very much. Moving into our agenda, I would love to think that you're all here because you're so interested in the dealings of the city council. I suspect that's not the case for everyone. So without objection, I'd like to switch the order of the agenda and bring up paper number 11,853, Mayor's Communication number 12 regarding the swearing in of public safety officers. And Mayor, if you'd like to have the first word.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome again to everyone. I think I make this joke every time we have the opportunity to do one of these things, but we are standing at this moment in the safest place in the city of North Adams. And that is thanks to the team that exists in the North Adams Police and Fire Departments. We have a strong and a long tradition in both of those departments. And tonight we have the opportunity to add to that tradition by swearing in one new permanent firefighter, five new patrol officers, and then to promote one of the officers to sergeant. And so with that, I think what we can do is have the clerk come up, and we'll have each person come up and take their turn. Let me just, for those who are at home, share the names. So we'll be swearing in tonight Ryan Richards as a permanent firefighter. We'll be swearing in Robert Barrett, Dana Clement, Taylor Klein, and Sakan Sadowski as new permanent police officers. They graduated from the police academy on February 14th, and Chief Wood and Lieutenant Beverly and I had the opportunity to be there with them as they graduated with them and their families. We also have a new member of Department Officer John Brack, who joined the department after service in the state of Florida and after qualifying for service in Massachusetts. And then at the end of the program, we will swear in Sergeant Brad Vivori. All right, thank you. See if I need to move the
Yes.
move the podium so that those listening at home can hear.
If you would take care of the stage arrangements for us, yes, I appreciate it. Will the clerk please administer the oath of office to permanent firefighter Ryan Richards?
There we go. Could you raise your right hand for me, please? I state your name.
I, Ryan Richards,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will perform the duties
that I will perform the duties
of a permanent firefighter
of a permanent firefighter
for the city of North Adams
for the city of North Adams
faithfully,
faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Please, I don't want to stick 'em with it. Can I put my own in it?
Will the clerk please now administer the oath of office to Officers Barrett, Clement, Klein, Sadowski, and Brack as permanent police officers?
Solemnly swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and will support the Constitution thereof. I do solemnly swear and affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent on me according to the best of my abilities and understanding, and will enforce the laws of the Commonwealth and the ordinance of the City of North Adams as a permanent police officer for the City of North Adams. So help me God. Congratulations.
And will the clerk now please administer the oath of office to Brad Vivori, promoted to rank of sergeant?
Like the ring.
Yeah, I know, huh?
Okay. Yeah, right. Usually a wedding and a ring is missing. Right here, as a matter of fact.
You know who not to ask or ask, man.
Chief, we got a fairly full agenda tonight.
Did we miss a question in the hiring process?
He's a contract guy. He's a contract chief, right?
Okay, all set? Okay, could you raise your right hand? I
I, Brad Vivori,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts
to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts
and will support the Constitution thereof.
and will support the Constitution thereof.
I do solemnly swear and affirm
I do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me,
all the duties incumbent upon me
according to the best of my abilities and understanding,
according to the best of my abilities and understanding,
and to enforce the laws
and to enforce the laws
of the Commonwealth
of the Commonwealth
and the ordinances of the City of North Adams
and the ordinances of the City of North Adams
as a police sergeant for the City of North Adams.
as a police sergeant for the City of North Adams.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Should
better practiced.
This is why I passed this. This is why I passed this duty along.
On behalf of the City Council, I'll congratulate you all and your family members. It's a great night to be here. Mayor, did you want to say one?
I did just want to say that in addition to it being appropriate to have firefighter Richard's family and Sergeant Vivori's family do the pinning, we're talking about a tradition of service in the community. Ryan's dad, how many years of service? 30 years of service, and this council knows Ross Vivori in his role as assessor very well. So, in addition to their service to the city, they have generously consented to share their family with the people of the city of North Adams, and I want to thank them. We all know that when you're in service to the city, particularly in a public service role, that is a duty of care and a duty of concern that every member of every family bears. So I want to thank all the family members who are here for their support of our officers and our firefighters. Again, I know many of the families of our new officers who graduated from the academy were there with us in Fall River 2 weeks ago, but I want to thank them again while they're here. Thank you.
So, acknowledging reality and that you're not all here to watch the next 2 hours, I'd like to take just a minute or two to let you leave if you wish to. And I appreciate you all coming. Thank you very much. If you would keep in mind that if you're out in the hallway and talking loudly, we will hear you in here.
Take care. Thank
Have a
you,
good
guys.
night, guys.
Right.
So how many are?
This brings us up to where we need to be number-wise. So we're at 24 full-time.
All right. Well, I've got all kinds of warm fuzzies going on, but we have a long agenda tonight. So moving on. Order number 11,831, an order accepting Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 90, Section 17C, the Berkshire Scenic Mountain Act, last in council on February 11 and voted to postpone to tonight's meeting. Do we, have a motion to
So I have a motion to adopt. However, it is incorrect on our papers. That's not the actual number for this law, which we identified at our last meeting. So the actual motion is a motion to adopt Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 39A, the Berkshire Scenic Mountain Act.
Okay. So it is the correct
That's the motion.
act, but the number
Wrong
of
number.
the act was wrong. So if you would repeat it.
So motion to accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 39A, the Berkshire Scenic Mountain Act.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Lamb.
Sure. So just so everyone's aware, the Community Development Committee met on this paper twice, once earlier in the month of late in the month of January and then early in the month of February. The second meeting was really to get clarification on a number of questions we had that we posed to Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, as they've worked with a number of communities, around 15, who have gone through this process in the Berkshires to date, most of which happened prior to 2005. So there has not been a lot of activity in this since then. But in the conversation, we really had questions about like what the legislation was it really firm? And it's pretty much rock solid the way it was set. It's based on the different sets of drainage for our various rivers that run through the Berkshires, and it's really meant to be a protective measure for the uppermost elevations to prevent those from becoming overly commercialized and developed in order to preserve the runoff in our watershed. So after those two meetings, myself and Councilor Sweeney voted unanimously at the last committee meeting to approve this and bring it forward to council for recommendations.
Further discussion, Councilor LaForest.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the meeting last week at which Councilors Lamb and Sweeney voted on this. However, it would have been 3 votes unanimous to send this to council for approval. The protection of our watershed is critical, not just in North Adams, but throughout the county and Commonwealth. And so I'm more than happy to support this. And we certainly would not want to see any of the mountaintops damaged in the way that the solar fields above High Street damaged the view of that hill and has caused runoff issues. So again, the protection of the watershed is of utmost importance, and also the scenic beauty of the mountaintops in the valley around North Adams. So I'm happy to support this as well.
Thank you. Further discussion?
I should just note one piece of this.
Counselor.
There's further steps in this once adopted, which will have to get organized through the city itself in terms of how this is enforced through our actual systems. So this is really us adopting the legislation that allows for those steps to occur. And so we've got kind of a layout that we received directly from Berkshire Regional Planning that identifies how that can happen. With that, though, they're just for anybody that might be concerned about this, especially if your property potentially falls within the parameters of this, that's where that process becomes important, so that there's opportunities for conversation and feedback. And it does not stop you from developing on property that you already own. It is just a kind of benchmark for you to engage in before thinking about deeper major development projects on your properties.
Further discussion? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote.
Blackmer,
Yes.
Mona,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Forrest,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Moulton, Sweeney,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passes.
It's unanimous. Thank you all. Order, or paper number 11,840, an order authorizing a study in regard to the restoration of children's pillar art located at Route 2, the bridge over Veterans Memorial Drive. Last in council a couple of weeks ago and voted to refer to general government, which has met since, and here before us tonight. Do we have a motion or any recommended action tonight?
I can give my report.
Please do.
So we met on February 19th, 2020, and we opened
Actually, I'm sorry, Council, we actually do need a motion on the floor to discuss.
move to discuss.
Can we do that? All right, good. I'm not sure that's a motion.
Well, I have a motion at the end of it, if that helps.
Well, make that motion now then.
Well, I'm going to move that we postpone it until the second meeting of March 24th, pending an opinion from the city solicitor.
Okay, do we have a second? All right, thank you. Now, please.
Okay, so I opened the meeting with the fact that we had referred the VERA questions, the VERA being the Visual Artists' Rights Act, that there are some pending issues with that regarding the original artwork that was there, and then the student artwork, and then the painting over of that. So who has what rights? So we sent that, and I know that Councilor Lamb mentioned some of the cases that have come up nationwide, and there's been some more rulings since. So we decided that it made more sense before we talked about any other rules and anything else and got into too heavy of a discussion to actually get a ruling or get an opinion from the city solicitor. So we have sent it to the city solicitor. But at the meeting, Mr. Obrist, he's one of the artists who was involved in the project, gave some background on the project and his research into the artists of the original Harmonic Bridge, the original project Harmonic Bridge. He was claiming that their work was sound art and not visual art, and he also felt that the art had not been maintained. He said that they had been an offer by a private citizen to cover the costs of the testing. Mr. Sapienza, a Public Arts Commission member who was not speaking on behalf of the PAC, but who was there, stated that there had been offers to have the students' arts recreated elsewhere. Counselor Harperin, who gave us obviously a lengthy documentation with hers, and Counselor LaForest's putting this on the agenda, said, she wanted this to move forward and was in support of getting it tested and in the order that she proposed. Mr. Smith mentioned the cost and that he felt, as he said tonight, that there were other issues facing the city and that we should just move forward and put this behind us. And Councilor Wilkinson brought up the fact that some of the artwork, the original work done, that the Pillar project is based on, is located at the public library. And so we voted to send this back to the council with the idea that we will have more information from the solicitor at some point.
All right, thank you. Further discussion? Councilor LaForest and then Harpin.
Through the chair to Councilor Blackmer, when this was sent to the General Government Committee last week, or several meetings ago, rather, there was an indication that a list of questions would be generated by the committee to go to the city solicitor for clarification, primarily of the precedence of art at that location. So what exactly was sent to the solicitor?
So before we sent to the solicitor some of the questions that Councilor Bona had and some others, I didn't see the point, we didn't see the point, actually the committee didn't see the point in discussing other issues until we get some kind of ruling on precedence and Vera, which Vera's the one who kind of decides the precedence, so there wasn't a real point in discussing other questions until we got some kind of ruling.
Yeah, no, that's fine, thank you.
Okay.
Follow-up?
Well, I do have a general follow-up. So, I want to be clear, I think it's irresponsible of anyone to say publicly that this is an issue of people who support Mass MoCA against people who do not support Mass MoCA. The reason that Councilor Harpin and I brought this to the full council is because there was a lack of resolution specifically as to the precedence of art, and there was ongoing concern within the community, which we are here to represent. And a petition with over 500 signatures was presented to the council through Councilor Harpin and myself, and it was our duty to address that concern. Now, I have been a member of Mass MoCA since Mass MoCA opened. I have no issue with Mass MoCA whatsoever. What I have is a responsibility to the city of North Adams to make sure that questions regarding public art are resolved so that the city isn't sued down the road. So people need to stop saying that this is a Mass MoCA versus anti-Mass MoCA issue. This is a significant issue that the city of North Adams needs to address to prevent further litigation against the city. God forbid that ever happens.
Thank you. Councilor Harpin.
Yeah, I just want to mention that this week I was able to talk to Gail and Phil Sellers. They've been out of town because they have family in Arizona, so they've been out in Arizona. So I did have the opportunity to speak with them. They were the ones that actually started out and were a big part of the children's art and Art About Town, and they are in full support of, trying to restore it. And they also mentioned that they still do have some funds that are available from Art About Town, and they would be willing to use those funds to restore the pillar art.
Thank you. Further discussion? We have a motion and a second to postpone to, was it the second meeting in March?
Yes, March 24th.
Further discussion? Last words? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One nay. Thank you. Paper 10,335-3, an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the revised ordinances of the City of North Adams, Section 13-50, entitled Parking, Time Limited on Designated Streets, last in council on February 11, and voted to pass to a second reading and publish as required by law. It's before us tonight. Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Discussion, please. Councilor Harpin.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I was not here last week, so some of the questions I'm asking might have already been asked. So my first, it's basically just one question. If there are other...
Point of order, Mr. President.
Councilor.
There's conversation in the gallery.
Okay. I just ask that people not do that. Thank you. If you have a conversation you need to have out in the hallway, please. Councilor.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, I'm just wondering if there's parking like this anywhere else in the city. I have noticed that there's 15-minute parking by Mountain One in the back on the Center Street parking lot. And so I just wonder if Mountain One is actually paying for, I think there's like maybe 3 or 4 spots right as you're going into Mountain One, and it's 15-minute parking. So I'm wondering if Mountain One is actually paying for those. Does it, through the chair to the mayor?
Does anyone have an answer on that?
I can't speak to whether the spaces in front of Mountain One are part of the Center Street parking lot, or whether they're part of the property as its own, so that it would be under the control of the property owner.
Councilor LaForest.
I don't know the answer to that specific question, but I do know that Mountain One has purchased a significant number of permits for the Center Street parking lot. So
Okay.
the point is valid, but they do purchase a lot of parking places in that parking lot.
Councilor Blackmer.
And I don't know, because I didn't, if I'd had, I would have driven by, but I think there's places along Ashland Street where it says 15-minute parking near, like, takeout restaurants, and I don't know, but I think there's several places where there's 1 or 2 spots in a zone, but I'd have to actually drive around and look to see.
And we did approve, not too long ago, additional spots on Ashland Street on that same corner, is that correct? Or basically on that same corner, okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote.
Blackmer,
Yes.
Bona,
Yes.
Harpen,
No.
Forrest,
No.
Lamb,
Yes.
Moulton,
Yes.
Sweeney,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Hopkins.
No,
Motion passes.
thank you. Thank you all. Paper 11,849, an order authorizing the mayor in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B, Section 16, to declare property on American Legion Drive, map number 151, lot 62, available for disposition. Last in City Council, February 11, and voted to postpone at the request of the mayor to the meeting tonight. Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved. Does this have to be published? No, it doesn't, okay.
We have a motion to adopt. Do we have a second? Can I second it? I'm not sure I can. Okay. Do we not have a second? I'm sorry.
Before, yeah, so I'm
Yes,
just going
sorry.
to cut in here.
Councilor Lamb, I
So,
meant to come to you first.
Based on pre-existing knowledge that if this property is approved for disposition through the council, because myself and Councilor Sweeney are both board members of the Northern Berkshire Community Coalition, and as Amber Besaw mentioned, they have strong interest in this property, we have to recuse ourselves and actually step out based on the State Ethics Committee.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we're going to go out the door.
You actually have to leave. the
We
room.
actually have to leave this space.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, yes.
I would like to also note that
We don't actually have a motion on the table
I
yet.
know, but it's, I don't know if I should be abstaining or not, because before the meeting, I didn't know that the coalition had involvement in this, and I do business with them.
It's a
So,
small town, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at this point, we're not approving
We're not
the
approving
council, we're
any
approving to
financial
put it out to
arrangement.
bid, but
Councilors Sweeney and Lamb are on the
I have
board of
done
directors.
this is what I did with the Sullivan School too, so to be consistent, but 20 minutes ago, I didn't know that that was an issue.
Okay.
So, I feel to be consistent with how I voted in the past, if it's a business, I've done it, was when Stanley's had interest in the salt shed lot. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where I fall on these things. I used to be on the board of the coalition years ago.
Yeah.
Does that exclude me? I don't
But
think so.
I'm currently doing business
Okay,
with
you are
them.
currently doing business. All right, well, let's, if
Our
you're going to
numbers still
abstain,
safe?
Councilor Blackmer, I actually, thinking about it now, I would prefer that this get referred to a subcommittee that does not involve any of these councilors, which I can't tell you we have one.
And in the meantime, I could
You chair
confirm
public
with
services, is that
state
correct?
ethics, but
I mean, it could go to general government and Councilor
yeah,
Sweeney.
I'm,
would have to
Still
give
need
it.
to vote on it.
Exactly.
Well, can I
So
just-
do we have a second at least, and then we can amend if need be?
Well, I want a clarification on Councilor Bona. There's been things that have come up while we're doing is just, we're basically making it available. We're not voting on the order, on the offer of.
But
Yeah.
until 20 minutes ago, I didn't
Point
know
of
who
order,
was-
Mr. President, there is no
Counselor.
motion on the floor.
That's correct.
We're talking about who
before-
can vote and who can't vote, so.
Well, exactly, but let's at least get a second so we can talk about that.
I can't second.
You can't second it. Do we have a second to either adopt, or if you want to rescind your motion and refer to general government?
I say we refer back to the, do we want to refer back to the administration?
Right.
Or and get, I mean, so is this gonna, I mean, this is gonna be a problem if people have to keep recusing themselves from issues where you can't even vote on things. I mean, I understand that the people do business with business, you know, he's a small business owner, he's gonna do business with a lot of people in town. At what
But
point is it
you
gonna
wouldn't
be
benefit
relevant?
directly by this transaction were it to occur sometime in the future.
Again, I'm just being consistent with what I've done in the past.
I'll rescind, but I don't know what you want for a motion. I can
Well,
refer to,
I'd like a
I move
motion.
to refer to general government.
Okay, do we have a second? Still not hearing a second.
I
All right.
refer to send it back to the administration.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Are we just gonna kill this and not sell any property in town?
Am I allowed to second a motion?
Yes.
Oh, I am, okay.
Yes.
Well, in that case, I second the motion to
Well, I will second
know.
the motion
Okay.
for the point of discussion.
I appreciate it, thank you.
But point of order
Discussion.
first, I think, according to Robert's rules, in a body of 12 members or less, the chair is able to vote as a participating member. So,
Vote,
yes,
yes.
you
Okay,
could have.
I was just uncertain if
believe
I-
you
if I
could
could
have
second.
seconded
Okay.
the.
Thank you.
the
So we have a
motion.
motion and a second to refer to general government. Is that
Okay,
correct?
a motion is second to refer to general government.
Okay, discussion, please. Counselor.
Through the chair to the mayor, clearly there was significant knowledge among certain parties that the disposition of this property was intended to go to Northern Berkshire Community Coalition, an organization which I support wholeheartedly. Is there an ethical conflict for this pre-existing knowledge for the city to dispose of property in this manner?
I'm going to respond to that because it was to me, there was no intention. There was an interest, and there is an understanding that if this is submitted to RFP through a competitive process, that anyone can bid. There is no preference given. There is no expectation that this would go to any entity, but that there is an interest on the part of this party that if this parcel is disposed of, that they would submit a bid.
Follow-up question.
Yes.
Through the chair to the mayor, Mayor, has the city discussed the potential appearance of an ethical conflict with the Ethics Commission?
We have not.
Counselor Harpen.
Yeah, I am going to vote no on this because not that I am against selling property or against anybody bidding on property that is here tonight, but my concern is a public safety building for the city of North Adams. We have not, as of yet, come up with an area in North Adams or a parcel in North Adams where we could do that. This is a location that is prime location in downtown North Adams. No, it's not a huge lot, but it's something that we might be able to use as possibly just a police station or just possibly as a fire station. But it's something that we have to consider down the road as something we could use as public safety, a building or building, you know, if we need two buildings or one building there. So until that issue is resolved, I will not be supporting selling this parcel in particular.
Counselor Wilkinson.
I happen to enjoy being on a committee that was looking for a spot for a new fire station and a new police station. We met a couple of times, talked with the chief of police, talked with the chief of the fire department and they had done some extensive research on what would be appropriate and would not be appropriate. This parcel was not one that was being considered because it's too small. So even though I'm not necessarily going to vote in favor of this, I just want to let know that that parcel really doesn't fit for the public services.
Further discussion, Councilor LaForest and then Blackmer. And then Harper.
I'm going to vote against this because prior to this coming,
Let me just be clear, the motion is to refer to general government, not the up and down on making it available.
I'm going to vote against referring this to general government.
Very good.
Because prior to this coming to council 2 weeks ago, at which point it was removed from the agenda and forwarded, it was already evident from multiple members of the community that there was the appearance that this was coming to council for the benefit of a specific and beloved organization. This is not an issue with the city or the organization that has a strong interest in this property, were it to go through the RFP competitive process. There's no accusations here. However, there was nothing.
I can't raise my hand?
You can, of course you can.
Okay.
So my concern is one of plan and process. I know that the lot is not big enough for a police and or fire station or a public safety complex. However, it is in the heart of downtown at a time during which we do need to indicate a place for a new public safety complex, and also that there is significant interest. At the last meeting, I believe I had asked for a list of the properties that are eligible for disposition, and at 10 minutes after 7 rather, when I sat down at this table, there was a list here. But what there is not is a plan. There's no indication what we're going to do with any of these properties, what we're going to do with our downtown. We heard indications relative to parking a couple of weeks ago. It's not particularly germane, but still we don't have a plan. We don't have a capital outlay, a 6-year capital outlay, which is supposed to accompany the budget every year. And that hasn't been done in many, many years. That's not an accusation against this administration. It just hasn't been done, but yet it's in the charter. We are supposed to provide a 6-year capital outlay. We're supposed to have an annual report every year. I don't know that that's germane to this either, but what I don't see here is a plan for the downtown, and so I do have to vote against moving this forward.
Thank you, Councilor Harpen, and then Wilkinson. No, I'm sorry, Blackmer, Harpen, Wilkinson.
I guess, I don't know. We've got a lot of property. If we're gonna fight over every piece of land that we wanna put up, every project that we wanna do, we're not gonna get anywhere, we're not gonna sell anything. In the meantime, putting these things for sale, in some cases, puts them back on the tax rolls, some cases doesn't. If not, we might get a check, depending on what we approve. If the bid comes in over the appraised value, then we have nothing to say about it. But I don't think that's why we don't put them on there. I'm also, I mean, this is, and also, I want to ask the clerk, there's an annual report done every year, correct? There with your office, if there's any question. I think the library always gets a copy.
There is not one for the last 2 years.
I don't have the last year's, though.
You don't, well, you don't, because it's,
every other
it's like a lag, it's a
The
year
last
lag.
2 years, there's no annual report.
There's no annual report?
They're being edited.
Okay. As a general rule,
Requested
but,
several times.
okay, so I'm guessing that has to do with the change in office, but, so it, I mean, we're told that we don't have any money. We don't have any money in the sale of land. We've had very little money in the sale of land. We don't have money for capital. Where are we gonna get it? We can't, you raise the tax rate, people complain. So putting some of these proposals forward, in some cases, obviously, but if people are watching and seeing that every time we put a piece of property up for land, or anytime anybody bids, they're gonna turn around and say, why do I wanna do that? Why put myself through that? So I think we should open up the properties that we want to, put out an RFP. If the project comes in, it's something we want and it's over the assessed value, move forward. If it's under the assessed value, analyze it. Is there a cost-benefit analysis of going forward anyway? And if particularly if given, Councilor Lamb's experience in working for One Berkshire also puts him sometimes, I think, in conflict in economic development. And Councilor Bona does a lot of business with a lot of the small businesses. although each one is probably very little impact, they all, we're not gonna get anything done.
Thank you.
So we need to move forward when we
Councilor
can.
Harpen and then Wilkinson.
Again, I just want to stress that my issue with this parcel is a public safety building. It is a prime location for a public safety building, and I believe it's probably, if not bigger, probably the same size as the property that we have the police and fire station on now. So I would suggest that it could be a possibility. I'm not saying it's the answer, but until we find out where we're going to put this public safety building, I would hold on to this property.
Wilkinson?
Counselor Wilkins.
Counselor, I'm sorry. I got one step ahead. Sorry.
No problem. My concern here is it seems like everybody else in North Adams knew that the coalition wanted this property except for me. I found out tonight, which I find kind of interesting because I've asked the mayor point blank in a phone call I had with him this past week, who has an interest in that? And he said, I prefer not to mention it right now. So I'm in the dark here, so I'm not going to suggest to go to any committee for sale.
Councilor LaForest.
I just want to echo once again, I held this paper up before. There are probably 100, close to 100 properties on here. I'm all for selling every one of them. This is not a question of me not wanting to generate revenue for the city of North Adams, and this is also not me wanting NBCC to have the home that it should have. This is a process issue. This is a plan issue. This is a parcel. Many of these parcels are out in the community, scattered all over the city. I have no issue with selling any properties, but I do have an issue with taking a piece of property that is literally in the heart of the downtown and disposing of it before we have a broader plan for the benefit of the downtown and the entire community.
Thank you. Further discussion, and then we'll try to wrap it up. Councilor Blackmer.
Councilor Wilkinson said that he was part of an ad hoc committee that was looking at public safety buildings, and if the professionals said that the space was too small, then it doesn't matter if it's the same size as the one we have, that one's too small. I would take the word of the professionals.
Thank you. Last words, Councilor
All right,
Harpen.
I'm sorry. I was part of that committee myself, and it was just a few minutes of some people getting together, having a small chat about it. It wasn't determining where we're going to have it, or we didn't have the money, so we couldn't look into it any further. Yes, the public safety or the police director was there, but I mean, they were casual conversations.
I totally disagree. We had 3 different meetings. They were not casual. They were in the mayor's office. We had the police chief there. We had the fire chief there. We probably looked over, there's a presentation. We looked over probably 7 different parcels, each one describing each one as to why it would be good and why it's not. So as much as I respect you, Counselor, I totally disagree with you.
Thanks very much. We have a motion to, and a second to refer to general government. If there are no last words, it's a roll call vote. Clerk.
Okay, Blackmer?
Yes, but probably the only one. And I did not know that it was the coalition, and I don't think that really
Fine.
matters.
Thank you.
Bona?
Abstain.
Yes,
Is that
sorry.
correct?
Harpen?
No.
Forrest?
I'm sorry, but no.
Wilson? No. Sweeney? Is abstaining.
Abstain. I know, right?
Wilkinson?
I hate to be in the dark, no.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Motion passed.
Maybe we should get clearer answers on what really constitutes a conflict of interest for future dealings, because this is going to happen, as Councilor Blackmer pointed out, all the time.
It's happened 3 times
Yeah,
since I've been
and
on
it's
council.
no way to do business. So, paper 11,851, communication from Councilor Moulton regarding public safety issues on the Route 2 wall and building the Union Street Mill. In other words, last in City Council 2 weeks ago, we asked the administration to come back with some information.
Excuse me, Counselor, we don't have all the counselors in here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought I'd say that.
Yes, I appreciate that, Mr. Buddington. All right, I'm going to repeat that last bit for the benefit of Councilors Lamb and Sweeney. Paper 11,851, communication from Councilor Moulton regarding public safety issues on Route 2, the so-called Union Street Mill. Last in City Council 2 weeks ago, delayed or postponed so that we could have some more information from the administration. Do we have a motion? Well, we need a motion to file,
Move to file.
just for discussion purposes. Do we have a
Second.
second? We have a motion and a second to file the communication. Mayor, did you want to offer anything new?
Not beyond what
Okay.
the director brought.
Okay. We all did receive just tonight, if you all saw it, communication from the Director of Inspection Services, which included information from him, but also a report provided to the property owner from an engineering firm. Councilor Moulton.
Thank you to the mayor. I mean, it looks like a pretty extensive report on what's been done in the past and what's going to be done in the future as far as shoring up and
It's a good point of order. Do we need a motion to file or something?
We already had.
Oh, I
Made a-
apologize. I went.
Thank you. But thank you for
Yes, ma'am.
staying on
And
top of
everybody
things.
abstained.
Yes, I'm sorry, continue, Councilor Moulton.
with photos and a kind of an explanation of what's been done and what's going to be done with the follow-up. But one thing I did have on my initial concern, well, number one, was is the structure sound? It appeared to be that it's sound. Has the structure been looked at recently? Yes. Number three, is there liability insurance on that structure? Something did happen. Fourth question, is the city any way liable? Something does happen, and if this party does not have insurance, if the wall should come down, if somebody should be walking on the sidewalk or cars, and it comes down, is the city now liable? We've allowed this to happen. One of my big concerns, and I go by it every other day, make sure it's still standing, and it is. The sidewalks are not blocked off. We know it's an unstable structure. They're shoring up the best they can. But I think it's a public safety issue.
All right,
You know, we're
further
talking about stop signs and, you know, stuff can happen. We got a wall that's, I don't know, 350 feet long. Right above you, you got bricks. They have fallen, maybe they won't, but I still think, in our due diligence, we should at least block that sidewalk off and have the people walk on the other side if they're gonna be walking on the sidewalk. So I came at this strictly as a public safety issue, not anything else, and that's still a concern of mine.
Thank you. Councilor Bona?
Yeah, the owner, Ariel Chatan, called me today, and we had a short discussion. He was starting to go off about his still possible, hopefully, prospective future plans, and I said, that's not really what this is about. It's, you know, and I expressed Councilor Moulton's concerns. Couple things he did say is that he has a letter from 2 years ago from the city requiring that the barriers be removed. So the liability issue could be interesting because he actually preferred them to still be there, and the city did require them to be removed. He mainly wanted them there, he said, just in case they were still doing work. And it made it safer just to close the gate. So that could be a question, I guess, for the solicitor. And then he also, Councilor Moulton said he would be contacting you directly, probably within the next couple weeks, just give you a basis of what his plans were. But so normally I would have said liability probably not an issue. I mean, we have buildings all along our city properties, and if a piece of facade or something came off, I would think the insurance comes from the building. But when you have a letter saying from the city to remove the barrier, that could change things. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilor LaForest, did you want to say?
Well, you know, 2 weeks ago at the council meeting, you know, we requested information on this with concern that it could be a public safety issue. And only because we had postponed it to the next meeting is it on tonight's agenda. But we requested this information 2 weeks ago. The report from the engineer is dated February 11th, 2020. The memorandum from Inspector Moranti to the mayor and city council is dated February 25th. And this was on the desk when we walked in to the council meeting. So I don't believe that the council should make a decision on an engineering report that was dropped on the table as we walked into council chambers this evening. I don't know why, this wasn't emailed to us, given that it was dated February 11th. It's hard to process this. You can barely read the schematics on the last page. We were sort of joking before the meeting about how difficult they were to read. And I am not convinced that this two-paragraph report with a bunch of oversized pictures really speaks to the structural integrity of the building.
Okay. Councilor Wilkinson.
Yeah. A question through the chair to the mayor, if I could. Do we know if the owner of that building actually has liability insurance?
My understanding is they do, but I will confirm that and let you know.
Because that kind of clears up a whole lot of this.
All right. Further discussion, Councilor Bona?
Yep. Also, the owner did tell me, though, that he has had regular meetings or talks with the building inspector. So, while we have a letter in front of us that may be just recent, he said it is a regular basis. He seems to talk with the building inspector. As for liability, I guess the question is, if we're going to require liability on buildings, it's either an ordinance that they all have liability or not. So,
I was just asking whether they did or not.
But actually, I think the buildings are owned outright. Liability isn't required.
No.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to file. Councilor Moulton?
This isn't a building, this is a wall. If I'm in a building, I expect to go in and have a roof above it. I mean, this is an empty space. Bricks in the past 2 months have fallen off that, they've been moved. If the owner says, I'd recommend that he wanted the barriers up and for us to take them down, I think that's, who wants to be a millionaire? You walk up on that thing, a brick comes off and hits you, who are they gonna come back to? If this guy hasn't got the money or insurance, he's gonna go to us. And I think we'd be responsible for it.
Thank you.
There's
Councilor
another
Bla-
alternative on the other side of the road. They were there for probably a couple of years. I don't think it's gonna hurt until we get this resolved to block that sidewalk off.
Councilor Blackmer.
I don't have my minutes from the last meeting with me because I had email issues before I could, and my email got deleted before I could print them out, but I read them. What was, and I guess the motion made, we sent this back to the administration to get a report from
clarify.
the, okay, so we got a report, we've got a thing, we've motioned to file. That's, again, just because we don't like the answers doesn't mean they're wrong.
Okay. Further discussion, Councilor LaForest, and then Councilor Harpen.
I don't not like the answers. I'm not an engineer, and I didn't have a chance to review this because it was dropped on the desk, as I said. I found it at 10 minutes after 7. I think it's disrespectful when we request information from the city and we get it right before the start of the meeting and we're expected to make a decision that Councilor Moulton is right, could affect the safety of the citizens of the city.
Are you more comfortable taking another couple of weeks and bringing it back one more time?
Excuse me,
I'm sorry.
clarification on
Councilor
that.
Harpen was next, but
Yeah, okay. So it seems like there's still some counselors that have some concerns about this wall. It's not a building, I guess that's true, it is a wall. Maybe we should send it to the Public Safety Committee instead of filing it. And that way it'll be an issue that they can address and look into and actually look at the map a little deeper if they would like to and report back to the council.
Councilor Blackmer?
Well, I guess we asked for some information. To what end, I guess? Are we just gonna send things back and get information and then, I'm not sure what action Councilor Moulton wanted when he was concerned about it and he wanted some things to be addressed. He wanted some answers. I don't know if you felt like you got your answers.
No,
What answers do you not? I mean, because what did we do? We sent it back for information. Are we trying to force an issue? Are we trying to do something? What is the goal of referring it is my question.
Okay. Councilor Moulton?
all I'm saying is I think this is a safety. Other instances up later on today about stop signs and things like that because of public safety. This is proven there's been a problem there. I think all I'm asking, I don't want the building torn down, I don't want an engineering study, I wanna see the sidewalks blocked off until what happened. Fifth question was, is there a short-term or a long-term plan? If Mr. Sustain comes back and says, we're gonna put a new building up, still want it blocked off, but we got a plan. How long is this thing gonna just sit here like that? It's only gonna deteriorate. It's not gonna get better. It's gonna only deteriorate. And I go by this thing twice a week, and there's still, it appears, bricks where some of the peaks seem to be, the mortar's gone. It's a tough winter we have here, and I want the sidewalks blocked off, is what I'd like to see.
If I may just offer my thought. When you first brought this forward, I thought your primary concern was safety and getting more information on it. It feels to me like that message has been sent very loudly to the property owner and to the city. I'm not sure what us considering this again in 2 weeks would accomplish, but just my thoughts.
Chair?
Further discussion, Councilor Lamb and then LaForest.
I actually agree that this should not be filed right now. I think it does need to come back to us, specifically because one question we just asked around the liability insurance, we don't have an answer to. So that hasn't been fully answered. In terms of the actual engineering safety, I feel like that has been partially answered, though we may not have had time to interpret what we were handed tonight adequately. But I don't think that this should be filed away at this juncture because there are still some questions from the original communication that have not been addressed, even though some have. So we should be clear that some have been provided to us. It just hasn't been the full view that I think we were looking for.
Am I allowed to take straw polls?
I was just gonna say I'll rescind my,
Okay, if it's agreeable, we can ask you to rescind your
I will
motion
rescind
and
my
your
motion
second.
to file and change that to a motion to refer to public safety.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to refer to public safety. Councilor LaForest.
That's great. Now, I'm going to read the conclusion into the record so the people at home know why I'm a little riled up about this. So the conclusion says, and thank you, councilors, for the motion to send it to the Public Safety Committee. The brick wall repair information provided on the attached drawing is based on visual observations, the photographs provided, and engineering experience. It is my understanding you will be conducting biweekly visual wall inspections utilizing the man lift you own, meaning the property owner who is not an engineer, who happens to own a cherry picker or some other device, who allowed bricks to fall into Route 2, as Councilor Moulton brought to our attention, is now going to be responsible for making sure no more bricks fall into Route 2. Okay. Let me continue, please.
Yes.
You will be looking for loose bricks on the exterior and interior wall surfaces and repointing and repairing any loose bricks to a sound condition. It is also my understanding the brick peaks will be checked for verticality and any leaning peaks will be removed down to the top of the thickened exterior brick wall, with the exposed top of wall being repaired as depicted on the attached drawing. Per our latest phone conversation, I can be available to come to the site for a monthly visual inspection of the existing brick exterior walls. The timing of the inspections will be at random times during the months to come and or on an as-needed basis. This is, per page 1, Inspector Moranti's memo, a preliminary report. The structural stability of this wall/building has not been determined, and we are right to continue to ask for assurance from the administration and a qualified engineer that that wall is not going to fall into Union Street.
Did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
Well, I guess since we're reading that into the record, I'd like to read the communication from Mr. Moranti. City of North Adams, Office of Inspection Services, February 25th, 2020. To Mayor Bernard and the honorable members of the North Adams City Council, from Bill Moranti, Director of Inspection Services, RE 234 Union Street. The Office of Inspection Services has been in regular communication with the owner of the property located at 234 Union Street to ensure the structure remains in a safe and stable condition until such time that a reuse or renovation plan is submitted and approved. While issues of liability for the structure are the responsibility of the property owner, I conducted a safety inspection of the property along with the property owner and the owner's engineer on January 9th, 2020. During the visit, we used the owner's equipment to inspect the top of the wall in the damaged area, and I requested a plan of action from the engineer to ensure that the wall would remain safe. A preliminary copy of the engineer's report, which summarizes the building condition and the short-term maintenance plan, which the owner is working to implement, is attached to this memo. And I guess, I mean, there's more, but
Okay.
the clerk will have it. She can scan it
All right.
and
Counselor
people
Bona.
can read it.
One suggestion, maybe before a date is set, I do believe the owner is willing, he actually said in the future he'd be willing to come in and give a presentation, but maybe this would be a time to have him at least invited to the meeting so that, you know, just saying, you can set a date and invite him and see if he can come that day, or maybe reach out to him first and see, you know.
Well, I hope he'll bring his engineer with him.
We have a motion and a second to refer to general government. Did you put a date on that to come back? I meant to
safety.
ask.
Public safety.
Public
Public
safety.
safety.
Public safety, correct.
Public safety,
sorry.
I don't know, second meeting in March 24th, is that enough time?
Second meeting in
I
March.
don't know everybody's schedule, so.
Public safety,
Who's the
Chairman
chair?
LaForest, correct?
Yes. I'll have to confer with the other members of the
Okay.
committee.
But second meeting in March should be okay? 4 weeks?
It's
Oh,
worth a
I-
try.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. And you can always postpone.
I mean, you
if
could make,
need
yeah,
be.
you
Yeah, you
can
can
postpone.
postpone it if we need to.
We have a motion and a second to refer to public safety, return date of second meeting in March. Further discussion, Counselor Moulton.
One more question, through the chair to the mayor. Is there any reason, especially seeing the building owner wanted the barriers up, that we should not put the barriers up?
The building owner wanted, well, first of all, the barriers that were there were protruding into the street. They were there for over 2 years. The building owner was using the barriers as an excuse to not act on the very issues that you're concerned about. So all putting a barrier back up does is give this property owner permission to continue delaying work that they have not done, continue delaying and kicking the can down the road on coming up with a long-term plan on this project.
Thanks. Any last words on this one? Seeing none, it is a voice vote to refer to public safety. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Paper 11,854, Mayor's Communication Number 13, recommending the reappointment of Sean Doherty to the North Adams Airport Commission for a term to expire March 1st, 2023. Motion to confirm.
So moved.
Second. And a second. Any discussion? Mayor, anything to say about this?
Just that he's been a good member of the commission, and the recommendation through
Thank
the
you.
chair was that he continue.
Any discussion at all? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Paper 11,855, Mayor's Communication Number 14, recommending the appointment of Charles Felix Jr. to the North Adams Historical Commission for a term to expire January 2, 2023. Motion to confirm.
So moved.
And we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Paper 11,856, Mayor's Communication Number 15, accepting a donation from Greylock Works for the city's 125th anniversary celebration. Without objection, will file the communication. And move to the order authorizing the mayor, in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, to accept a donation from Greylock Works valued at $3,500. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Mayor, would you like to say anything about this?
Other than, and I know this has come up through the council in prior meetings, work is underway to plan the city's 125th anniversary celebration for April 24th, 25th. The committee that is working on the event is looking at a community celebration to be held at Greylock Works on the evening of Friday, April 24th. Greylock Works has offered to donate the space. The goal is to make this, in terms of ticket and event cost, as affordable as possible to the entire community. And so this is just part of that larger
Wonderful.
event.
Thank you. Councilor Harpen.
I just want to say this is a really tremendously generous gift from Greylock Works, and I just want to thank them for donating this and being a part of our community.
Thank you. Councilor Bona.
Just say, as a member of this committee, we did look at other spaces. Part of it is size, and because we want to keep it affordable, I think there may be other donations or charitable contributions you will hear coming forward. We're trying, this is going to be, could be a $50, $60 dinner that we're actually going to try to keep at a $20 ticket, so that it does make it as easy as possible for members of the community to attend. So obviously every donation we get towards that, and then profits that are made through these events will will help fund the tower and other amenities at the library. So
Fabulous. Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote.
Blackmer,
Yes.
Bona,
yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
LaForest,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Moulton,
Yes.
Sweeney,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Paper 11,857, communication from Counselor Bona requesting time for Viviana Dorfman, a student at Technical University in Berlin, Germany, to present findings on her thesis concerning North Adams. Without objection, we'll file the communication. And Counselor Bona, if you would do the introduction.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone, I did send an email today with a little bit more of a description, an outline of Viviana's presentation she's going to give. Obviously, I'll let her do the introduction, but she has lived in our community for the past 6 months. I have a feeling Counselor Sweeney has been connected with her even more, but she has been out there. You'll see her in cafes, you'll see her at the Berkshire Food Project, you'll see her. She's talked to some staff in the city hall. I don't know the whole, I've not seen the presentation, so it'll be as much of a surprise to me. And then I believe she's leaving very shortly back to Germany. But one of the reasons, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, that she picked North Adams as her father's close friend moved here. Is that correct? Not that long ago, right?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago, and so I think that's what enticed her to come here and to make North Adams her temporary home.
All right.
So,
Ms. Dorfman, are you okay with the technology? Is it functioning? Oh. It always helps.
I have, yeah.
Eric, do we know how to do this?
There's a remote that the council president has in your hand.
I've been secreting it away. Where would it be?
It's not bad, is it?
Maybe under the podium.
What? There we go. We're gonna need someone.
Heard a beep.
Sounded like it turned on.
Okay, it's got to warm
There's
it
a
up.
flashing green light. We'll probably need one or more light switches thrown.
No, don't say yup, you're too young to remember that.
Yep. There's a yup and yep.
That looks great, thank you.
You can pull the podium closer if you need to.
I hope that it doesn't go.
All right, if you would make
Sorry.
for those watching and listening at home, if you'd make sure the microphone is fairly close to you so that they can hear well.
I'd like to initiate with saying.
Maybe a little bit closer than that.
Yeah, speak up and bring that mic close because it does have a distance.
That should work right.
I would like to begin saying that for the lack of time, I will not be able to go into depth with all my findings, as this is a 4-page version of my 40-page thesis. Yeah. So the information I will be presenting is based upon scholarly reports on art and culture redevelopment strategies. It is from the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, the Health Services Systems, and Public City Information interviews with developers and residents. I have lived in North Adams. Sorry, this is weird. I've lived in North Adams for almost 5 months now. I have built many relationships with the residents and become very fond of the openness, the pride, and the deep connections residents have with their city. However, as I've dug deeper into the needs of the community and the developments occurring, I've become rather concerned. I'm not going to explain the degree of generational poverty, mental illness, substance abuse, and homelessness in the city. All of us sitting here today are aware of the severity, and I want to believe all of us have empathy and want them too to be uplifted and incorporated in the city's developments. Over 30 years ago, the city was in search for a new direction, a new source of employment, and something that would bring back life from the ashes of urban renewal and deindustrialization. Like many other cities across the world, particularly post-industrial cities, turned to art and culture to lead its revitalization with the promise of its catalytic impacts on other sectors of the community. Now, 20 years after MassMocha opened, it is clear that the strategy was successful in creating and stimulating change in the community. Tourists, new people, new businesses, new jobs, and probably the most impactful in the future, more attention has been brought to North Adams. But the question to be asked isn't whether has it brought change. Rather, what kinds of change, and what are the impacts of this change? Is it bettering the quality of life of residents? Are the needs of the community being addressed by the leading redevelopment strategies? For the past few months, these questions have led my research in the realms of my bachelor thesis in urban and regional planning. I will begin to answer the questions by illustrating the results the redevelopment strategy and the results and outcomes. The strategy's goal is to bring tourists and external investors and businesses to North Adams to revive the city's economy, meaning the strategy's approach is outward and economically focused. It consists of two major parts: placemaking and place marketing. Place marketing, also described as city rebranding, aims to create a city identity that is marketable and attracts external interests. Therefore, North Adams' identity symbolizes its world-class cultural attractions. Place marketing is carried out by both the public and private sectors. Public measures have included signage and a new website. Private measures include creating the new identity and promoting it. And lastly, press articles multiply place marketing effects, particularly the press which is read by the targeted audience, tourists, and investors. Instead, placemaking consists of place-based measures to make the city more attractive to the targeted audience. Some scholars call these place-based measures symbols of growth because they serve as catalyzers to yield real results in real estate development, new businesses, and jobs. This includes flagship developments which serve as anchors for increased activity, and beautification measures such as the removal or renovation of rundown buildings, the installment of parks, parklets, and art exhibitions throughout the city. I created this image to illustrate the major place-based developments in North Adams. The key findings are a considerable amount of money is being invested in developments within the city of North Adams. 2, the majority of the money is being invested in developments targeted to tourists and affluent persons. This has created a quite drastic imbalance of investments from both public and private investments. 3, things are starting to take speed after 2014, and in the future, more developments are targeted towards affluent persons and not only tourists, as we see in earlier years. Such developments are very common by flagship museum and cultural tourism redevelopment strategies. In addition to these major developments, they also generate further real estate interest and new businesses relating to tourism, such as Airbnbs, high-end restaurants, breweries, cafes, and retail stores. The majority of placemaking and marketing measures are carried out by the private sector and welcomed and supported by city and state government. The largest of these developments have in the past and are currently receiving tax exemptions or state grants. Public support of such developments is justified with the expectation that the city's economy, tax base, job base, and overall business growth will increase and improve through these developments. This leads us to our next question. What are the impacts of a primary tourism-led and increasing external interest in the real estate? North Adams' identity has been significantly enhanced on a national and international scale. However, on a local scale, there is a lack of overall consensus. After urban renewal and deindustrialization, the city has needed a new common identity residents can take pride in. Redevelopments offer such an opportunity to enhance and generate a city's common identity, which impacts the residents' pride and self-esteem. However, the current redevelopment strategies, outward focus, implant formation, and resulting developments not intended to serve the existing residents challenge its inward unity. The lack of consensus also generates social tensions between long-term residents, developers, and new residents. In addition to creating urban conflicts such as the closing of the hospital the same year MassMocha received $25 million grant, and the more issues concerning the artwork on the pillars. The lack of local integration and representation of the redevelopment strategies challenges the social benefits associated, such as pride and self-esteem. In many cities, as well as North Adams, the imbalance of the targets of investments are justified by trickle-down economics. But how much is actually trickling down? Despite the over $100 million invested in infrastructure in the past 20 years, an estimated annual increase of $51 million annually to the local economy from MassMocha operations and visitors, and the created 586 jobs, poverty, inequality, housing insecurities, and homelessness have increased in North Adams, according to the Berkshire Planning Commission and Health Systems. The economic benefits that trickle down to long-term residents from this cultural strategy are minimal, and the majority of the jobs created are far from getting long-term residents out of poverty. This is due to the type of jobs created by cultural tourism. Museum workers, security workers, restaurant workers, and hospitality jobs provide a combination of underemployed, part-time, seasonal work for low wages and with little career mobility. They also provide a smaller number of better paid positions. However, thus far, the majority of these positions are being filled by non-locals. Therefore, without a radical change in the employment conditions of such jobs, the cultural tourism economy in North Adams will not enable residents to climb the economic ladder to get out of poverty. Rather, the created economy suggests increases in economic and social inequalities. Considering these developments, it seems fair to ask, quote, are we going to support strategies which eliminate poverty and integrate everyone, or increase these inequalities, end quote. From Sharon Zukin on art and cultural redevelopment strategies. Now we come to our next impact I would like to highlight. Rising property values. These rising property values of the strategy are not reflective of individual physical improvements with a few exceptions, nor do they reflect improvements in public infrastructure such as transportation, health services, and education. These increases are representative to the increased interest in real estate in the area. This interest comes from a mixture of affordability, flagship institutions, and promotion and press. Generally, economists and public officials encourage rising property values. However, in a city where half of the residents are renters and a large portion are in extreme poverty, rising property values challenge the majority of residents rather than benefit them. Currently, we are witnessing increasing living costs without comparable rises in wages. The resulting impacts, such as increasing percentages of wages going to rent, displacement, and homelessness, that are associated with rising rents and property taxes despite stagnating wages, must be a main priority for the city's future development decisions. The need for this priority comes from the very coherent predictions that property values will continue to rise. Such measures consist of securing large portions of the housing stock to reflect wages of all sectors of residents and avoiding developments which will continue to inflate property values without evident social and economic impacts for residents. The city and economists will argue that these inflations are beneficial because they are raising the city's tax base. This is true. However, raising the city tax base can come from a variety of measures, and an increased tax base is only beneficial to residents if its investments target residents, and so equalizing the imbalances of the investments in the private sector. If public funds also support developments for tourists and affluent persons, they are enhancing the already existing inequalities of investments. In many ways, this is already occurring. Currently, a number of properties whose real estate values are among, if not the highest in the city, are receiving tax exemptions, either by being nonprofits or through TIF agreements. The receivers of these exemptions are not only providing infrastructure primarily for tourists, they are arguably the most profitable businesses in North Adams. The question to ask here is the city going to continue to give tax exemptions to multi-million-dollar developments whose indirect benefits to the local community amount to enhancing the image of theirs and the surrounding properties, offering primarily just above minimum wage jobs, and are causing more percentages of residents' income to go to living costs? Or should they support raising the tax base through targeted tax exemptions which incentivize residents to physically improve their residential properties, in so directly benefiting the community? Such a measure could provide employment, educational opportunities, and social benefits through living in a better home. Sorry, I forgot to show the slide that explains it. I'll give you 1 minute to look at it. For the lack of time, I cannot go into more depth nor further elaborate on the impacts occurring. But as I said, I will send my thesis to the city. I will use the last few minutes to talk about the future. But first, I'd like to make clear that I'm not suggesting the end of Mass MoCA. Rather, I am calling for action to channel the impacts resulting from the developments to benefit the existing residents. Coming back to our conversation of change, I would like to invite all city officials to reflect critically while making decisions and not regard every business opportunity as a benefit to the community. Actively asking major developments how they plan to benefit multiple sectors of the community, particularly those marginalized, and then earnestly assessing these impacts would be measures to promote more inclusive developments. Furthermore, opening discussions to the community and including and respecting their voices in decision-making processes are further measures to help generate more inclusive developments. Redevelopment and community revitalization is not a race. Rather, for it to include and benefit its residents, it takes time. And in many ways, the process in which the developments occur is often more important than the actual results. In order to achieve inclusive development, I encourage to look more inwardly with strategies, as outward-focused strategies set the stage for external benefits prior to internal benefits. Looking at the prioritized needs of the community, it is clear that major strategies must include social goals in addition to economic ones. Also, goals should be directed in attracting persons to stay and move to North Adams, not just invest and visit in the city. This entails having quality infrastructure which supports residents, such as a hospital, good schools, furthering educational opportunities, and affordable cultural opportunities that appeal to residents and bring people together. Of course, well-paying jobs are necessary as well. In this regard, I have my fingers crossed for the new Green Deal. the Green New Deal, sorry. Lastly, in regards to struggles surrounding the downtown liveliness, rather than first trying to get tourists to an empty downtown, promote developments that target and encourage residents downtown. People follow people. Once residents enjoy spending time downtown, the rest will probably happen naturally. On this note, I would like to thank you for listening, and I remain curious to see when public discussions surrounding the impacts of the planned Extreme Railroad Museum will occur, and whether the residents, and therefore the city's officials, will welcome the plan. Thank you. If anyone has any questions or wants to have more information or ideas of what to do
Nope, stay to the mic.
in some regards.
I'm sorry, Mr. Buddington, would you turn the
Anyone
lights
has
back
any
on for me, please?
questions, I am free to answer any questions. Also, if you look critically to what I said, I would be happy to explain more.
All right. Comments or questions from the council? Councilor Harpen.
I just want to thank you for taking the time to do this. It was a really realistic approach to things in North Adams, so thank you. Could you send us the report through email?
Yes, I am not done. I plan to be finished with the. Do you want this or do you want my thesis?
Yes.
Both.
Both.
Yeah, that would be
Yes,
great.
I can send both, but the thesis will be in a couple months.
Councilor Blackmer.
One of the things that, and I don't know if you addressed it in your thesis, obviously 40 pages versus a spreadsheet. One of the issues when we talk about jobs and poverty is the mismatch between the skills of the population and the skills needed by the employers, and I think that's something that it's a problem, but it's something that's one Berkshire and a lot of places are working on, but I think that's an issue that needs to be dwelled down on.
Part of the developments could consist of educational opportunities and providing education for the residents to obtain positions that are higher up, is my response to that.
Any further comment or questions?
I'd just like to, again, say thank you.
Thank you.
And when do you leave?
I think in a week.
Leave in a week, so have a good trip back. And just curious, could you have done this whole presentation in German?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Right. Thank you very much. Moving on then to Council Paper 11,858, a communication from Councilor Harpen requesting time for Roger Urban to speak regarding an initiative to install banners honoring veterans in North Adams. Without objection, we'll file the communication, but Councilor Harpen, if you'd like to introduce the issue.
Yeah, so I was approached by Roger Urban, who has done so much volunteer work in the community, who is interested in a project similar to the one that is being implemented in Adams, our neighboring town, regarding Veterans Honor Banners. So I would just ask if Mr. Urban can speak on the issue, please.
I plan to give you a presentation. I'm not going to do that. Time is short to get home. I have a wife that had a stroke, and I have to take care of her, so I have a time limitation. I'm sure you do too. You're aware of the banners. You've seen them maybe in other locations. They're hang down from an arm that comes out from a lamppost or some such. And it shows a picture of a gentleman, and it gives the name, his service, and the date of his death. And this is important because these banners honor those who were killed in action in the 2 world wars that we've suffered. When I thought about this, I said we should be doing this in North Adams. We have these names on a wall over at the circle, but how many have seen that? How many have read the names? How many have seen the stars indicating that they were KIA? Some have, most haven't. It's a good way to honor our veterans. The other thing is it's going to take community involvement. In order to get a person's picture on one of these banners, the family has to provide it to us. Or we'll have to make up something in lieu of that, and I don't know what that would be at this point. So I've got a lot more things that I can say about this. I'm going to wait till another council meeting to do it because time is getting short. Any quick questions that I could handle? I know I don't need your approval to do this, but
Councilor Harpen.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows if someone's interested in helping in this process, they can contact me and I can certainly relay the information on to you. But is there a contact, an email, or would you just a contact number? I don't know how you want to do that.
I'm not computer literate enough right now to have an email that you can contact me on, or a Gmail, or any of the other kind of mails. The best thing to do is give me a call. I am in the phone book, at least the old phone book. The new one that just came out, I'm not in.
Still phone books?
For some reason, yeah, the Verizon thing.
Yeah.
Joke. So, yeah, give me a call or drop me a note. And I'd certainly love to have you as a member of a committee that we can, or actually a work detail, that we can put you to work doing this. It shouldn't be a big deal. I think we can get it done. And we're not looking for city money to do this. We'll raise the money. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to stay a few more minutes and deal with it.
Councilor Harpen, in your communication, you would ask that this be forwarded to the Public Services Committee as a point of contact. Do you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I would make that motion. I'm not sure how councilors feel about that, but I thought it was a good idea, just so Mr. Urban and his group would have a point of contact for the council, or, you know, if people were interested, they could contact the council as well. So I don't know if that's something that the council agrees with, but I just thought it was a good idea.
Do we have a second for that motion?
I would.
Second, motion and a second. Discussion, Councilor Blackmer and then Councilor Bona.
Well, I wanted to thank Mr. Urban for this and for all the other work that he's done regarding our veterans in the cemetery. Was there a timeline that you wanted to have these up? Did you want them up for Memorial Day, Veterans Day, July 1st? Did you
Yes.
have a thought?
I'd like to have them up prior to Memorial Day.
Okay. And also, my thoughts are, do we really need to send this to a committee? I think
yeah,
contact with a lot of it's going to be the logistics of getting it done are going to involve the city, so I don't know if we really need it to be
There
referred
really
to a
isn't that
committee.
much city involvement, to be honest with you.
Well, you're going to put banners up on,
When they get
Right.
to that point, yes. But I think that's a ways off.
Councilor Bona?
Yeah, I think this would be similar to how the money was raised for the flags, so that are in the Veterans Parks. That
The wreaths?
What's that?
You mean the wreaths?
No, the actual flags, the flagpoles and the money for the flags, wasn't that all privately raised and then the
No.
city helped install that?
No, we get that from the Veterans Group, or from the Veterans Administration.
Oh, okay. Then the wreaths. We like the wreaths.
Right.
Councilor Lamb.
Thank you again. I'll reiterate what everyone has shared. This is fantastic. You do a ton of volunteer work across the board. I saw that you had great success getting sponsorship in Adams specifically for it, and I think that makes it exciting, and then there's energy behind it.
I had nothing to do with that, by the way.
Take credit where credit's due. But I think I imagine that there's folks in North Adams too that will see this as an opportunity.
I've got some contacts already.
Great,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thanks. Any
I guess
further discussion?
back to
Councilor
my
Bona?
question, does it need to go to public service at this point? Can we
That's
just?
your committee, correct?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I just don't know at this point what we'd be discussing, so.
Okay.
The only
Councilor
issue is I think when they put up signs and banners, it eventually at the end has to go through the public service director, I believe. I know when we put the sign up for our sister city, it had to be approved by the public service director. So does it need to go to the committee? Probably not.
Councilor LaForest.
I was just going to say that, no, I don't, I mean, we support this 100%, but I
Yeah.
don't know if it needs to go to the committee now.
Okay.
I think it was more to keep it alive rather than just filing it.
Right, so if you just rescind that,
Yeah,
it
we'll
just
keep
gets
it alive,
filed and-
Councilor Lamb.
Do you
Sure,
wanna
I'll rescind
your
it and
motion?
we can
Okay, great.
file it.
All
That's
right,
fine.
thank you.
Now,
Mr.
if
Urban,
I
thank
may,
you so
whoever
much.
needs to approve it should ask him now. Or, I don't want to get involved in something that goes crash, okay? So ask him now, let me know, and we'll take it from there.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Paper 11,859, communication submitted by Councilor Lamb addressing various safety issues regarding sidewalk ordinances. Councilor Lamb, do you have a preference?
Yes,
for
so motion to refer to public safety.
Do we have a second? Do a return date?
We'll do a first check-in, first meeting of April.
First meeting of April. We have a motion and a second discussion.
I'd like to just read it into the record for
Okay,
the sake
thanks.
of the record. So, dear fellow councilors, recent incidents involving pedestrian vehicular collisions are nothing new. We are faced with a critical and urgent issue. When it comes to creating safe ways for people and vehicles to move throughout our city. While much of this has to do with roadways and points of crossing, an additional piece of this is sidewalk infrastructure. Currently, the administration has indicated that they are working on addressing direct vehicular traffic issues. Additionally, the mayor has indicated to me that the city is working on a full audit of our sidewalks and will be building a plan to address the needs of our sidewalk infrastructure to be repaired and updated across the city. Because these aspects are being addressed, infrastructure is not the issue I seek to address with this communication. This communication is presented to you tonight to address the issue of sidewalk obstruction. These obstructions come in many forms, including snow, ice, trash cans, and other impediments that prevent the regular operation of a sidewalk as a safe corridor for pedestrian use. When our sidewalks in the city are blocked in any way, it creates new pinch points that can instigate more locations where people and vehicles are forced to come into contact. We have all seen this as people are forced to walk in the roads and medians because the sidewalks are impassable for a variety of reasons. In some extreme cases, during the winter, significant stretches of our sidewalks have been neglected to a point where they become so unsafe and so obstructed that children living on those streets not only have no place to stand to be picked up by the bus, but they cannot physically reach the point at which their bus is designated for a pickup because of the amount of uncleared sidewalk. This means that obstructed sidewalks are not only a public safety issue, forcing people into the roads, but they are also preventing pedestrian travel and are creating an issue that is impeding the ability for some of our youth to go to school. With the numerous issues that obstructed sidewalks cause, I am presenting this communication to begin the work of the needed development and implement steps to ensure safe, passable sidewalks across the city. Several aspects of this that I believe need to be addressed include, and I'm just going to read the quick bullets, existing ordinance updates, so actually updating our current ordinance. For instance, right now our ordinance requires 12 hours for removal of snow, but that's not a viable situation for most of our city-owned sidewalks just because of capacity limits. So figuring out a system that's actually enforceable and can be actively run through the city. New ordinance development. So existing ordinance don't adequately address other obstructions in the sidewalk that are not weather-related, such as trash cans, overgrowth from plants, things like that. So that needs to be addressed. Clear, consistent accountability measures. So we need improved processes for actually holding people accountable and enforcing ordinance that are tuned in accordance with capacity and the ability of people to actually comply. And then appropriate equitable supports for physically challenged. And this one's unique, so I'm going to read it. We know that not everyone will be able to clear snow and ice from their own sidewalks due to physical disabilities and challenges. That said, beyond neighbors helping neighbors, the city must establish a process to recognize individuals with valid physical ability constraints to comply with clear sidewalk ordinance and help those individuals in need navigate ways to come into compliance so that they can get the support needed to keep their sidewalks clear as unobstructed transportation routes. North Adams is a green community, a complete streets community, and a community that continually finds new and innovative ways to address issues that arise. We should be actively pursuing ways to make non-motorized transportation easier, safer, and a better fit for our incredible city. In order to better support safe pedestrian corridors and multimodal transportation options, to cut down on collision pinch points, and to help our community be healthier through the act of walking and running, we must act now to develop realistic policy, consistent accountability and enforcement, and appropriate equitable resource allocations that will help us become a safe, pedestrian-friendly city that we all deserve. Thank you. So that's all of it. Really, the goal here is to start the process of addressing numerous points. This is meant to be a comprehensive communication that will include ordinance. It'll include city practices and processes and mechanisms for enforcement and making sure that we can actually do it, not just setting enforcement that's unrealistic to manage, and then really taking into account those in our community that aren't physically able to actually clear snow, because we do know that that is a challenge for some. So that is why I'm bringing this forward.
Discussion. We have a motion to refer to public safety with a return date of April 1st.
First meeting of April.
First meeting in April.
7th, I think it is.
All right. Any thoughts? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Paper 11,860, communication from the North Adams Traffic Commission recommending stop signs at the intersection of East Main, Pleasant, and Minor Streets.
Move to refer to public safety.
Okay, we have a motion to refer to public
Second.
safety and a second discussion. Counselor Sweeney, I see your name on this.
Yes, I will read the communication into the record for those of you who are listening. The North Adams Traffic Commission recommends adding additional stop signs to the intersections of East Main, Pleasant Street, and Minor Street. The first recommended sign would be located on East Main and Minor. The sign would be located at the end of the median and would regulate westbound traffic. We would also recommend adding an additional stop ahead sign further up the hill. This would notify drivers of the new sign placement. Second recommended sign would be placed on East Main. At Pleasant, this sign would regulate eastbound traffic. At the Traffic Commission meeting, we had a very lengthy discussion about this intersection in particular, being that it's very close to Colgrove Park and being an area that many school children have to cross the street to get to their homes. And as we are all well aware, there was recently an accident that could have been fatal, but thank God it wasn't. And so the Traffic Commission and the folks at the meeting thought this might be a appropriate step moving forward to secure a little bit more safety at that intersection.
Further discussion?
I'll just say thank you to the Traffic Commission for the work that you did on this, and we'll look forward to addressing this through the Public Safety Committee.
Okay. Counselor Lamb, and then Blackmer. Sorry.
Councilor Blackmer was first, technically.
Go ahead.
I just have several questions. At this meeting, could I ask if you're going to have one that there's a map that has points, like I went and printed out a Google map view because I was trying to visualize it, and I live at the top of East Main Street, and I use this road pretty regularly, where they want to put the signs. Secondly, if retired Lieutenant Sacco could be there to kind of clarify some, and preferably, possibly the chief, some of these people that were part of that discussion, because I didn't make that meeting. There were several other things going on that night. Because I just think it would be good to have people there that can answer some of these questions. Okay. And also, particularly with the police chief, because he's an active police officer and can address some of the issues. Okay. Some of the other comments and questions that have come up surrounding this.
Counselor Lamb.
Yeah, I think those are great points to bring up at that meeting, and it's good to plan ahead. I would just like to say I think, this is one piece to a massive overhaul that needs to occur when we look at kind of our traffic systems and how we do traffic slowing and all of that. And we've had numerous iterations of conversations, especially on this particular strip, about traffic slowing needs. And to Ms. Janice's point about the city, the police, the city council, and the residents all getting on board for creating safer street situations, this is a really good step on our part to actually move forward with something that's going to improve safety in that corridor. So I think it's really great that this is coming forward, and looking forward to the public safety meetings on it.
All right, thanks. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to refer to public safety. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thanks. Committee reports and/or minutes. Any? Councilor LaForest.
Just a very quick update. The Airport Commission met this afternoon, and the new administration building recently received its certificate of occupancy. So the commission is moving forward to bring a restaurant and fixed base operator to the airport. At the beginning of this fiscal year, the council approved funding for maintenance, full-time maintenance person at the airport. So with the opening of the building, that will move forward as well. Additionally, Stantec, the engineering firm, is moving forward with a study to address wildlife hazards that are problematic for the runway and runway maintenance as well. There needs to be crack sealing updated, so the airport continues to be a vital component of our community, and the commission is addressing its needs.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any other committee reports or minutes? Seeing none, thanks. No licenses, correct? Open forum. Anyone in the gallery who wishes to speak to the council on any item? You have 2 minutes. Mr. Smith, sorry.
Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. I just want to say to the Councilor Forrest, I appreciate your passion for the pillar art. It's, I understand that you really would like to see this resolved. But I want to say something, though. It wasn't 500 signatures. It was 396. 180 of those signatures were not citizens.
Point of order,
were
Mr.
not
President.
citizens.
It's 2 minutes.
Were not citizens of the city.
Okay.
Now, I understand you're frustrated and you are passionate that you're sick and tired of this thing with Mocha. But I will tell you, Councilor Forrest.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Counselor.
I will tell you, Mr. LaForest, or Councilor Forrest, sorry, that there's a lot of people sick and tired of this saga continuing on for 3 years and then some. This is not about the children. It's about a handful of people in this city. But there's a lot more people out there who I know do not want this to continue. And as far as you're saying there might be a lawsuit, do you have any factual evidence of that? Also, the man who was the artist who came to this commission meeting stated he knew somebody in New York 2 years ago who would support the project. I really don't think so. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to address the council? Mr. Smith. Wilson, and then Mr. Sapienza. I'm sorry.
My name is Eric Wilson. I live at Brighton Hill, apartment 116C. I live upstairs. I just wanted to say I'm on the disability board of the city. I'm trying to represent people with disabilities on both sides in Mass Mocha. Anywhere I can talk to people about people with disability. We want to be part of this community. Keep it simple. Sell those properties so we can get the money too. Try to get along with each other. Life is short. I know I get upset once in a while, but I know with my disability, someone told me I can't do it, but I did it. The doctor told me that I would never move out of the house, stay at my mom and dad for the rest of my life. And here I am now. Here I am doing things in the community that I never expected to do. In my category, that's not me. I can't do it. It's just going to take a little while to do it. I know you got to take your time, make sure you don't think. We need to get along with everybody. Mass Mocha people are part of our community, and they're good people, and just need to get along on both sides. We should not be fighting with each other. We want to get this community the best of our ability so people can move here. And that's the only thing I got to say. And thank you. Thank you for listening to me. And I do care about you guys. I care about people. And so I'm for having this move. We need to get rid of those properties. We've been hanging on to them too long. And I'm not trying to tell you guys what to do. I have a hard time taking care of myself.
All right.
God
Thank
bless
you,
you
sir.
guys.
Thank you. Mr. Sapienza.
Yes, Brian Sapienza, 113 Pleasant Street. I want to point out with Councilor Lamb's concerns of the area in the Pleasant Street, East Main Street area, that is there any type of education that's provided to the children, especially at Coal Grove School, in how in areas where they're supposed to cross and not just across the street at random? There was an incident a couple days ago where my father was driving up East Main Street, and he always drives very cautiously and very slowly through there because he knows there is a risk of children running out from between parked cars. He had a little girl run out from between a couple of the parked cars outside of a crosswalk, and fortunately he was going slow enough to avoid any kind of tragedy. She was wearing a hoodie or some type of hood that was preventing her vision, and she just ran out and not looked. And I think there should be some type of an education program for the children to help them protect themselves and not to cross just anywhere on that street, but to use the designated crosswalks in that area so that we can prevent future tragedies. And that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, if you would approach the microphone, name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Alicia Canary, 100 River Street. First, I just want to say bravo for pursuing the pillar issue, because if you followed the news in New York City, they just had a huge settlement on destruction of public art, and that public art was actually on private property. So clarifying that information is really important for the city. And two, on this day of passionate discussion, I want to remind everybody that the Jane's Walks International Walking Festival dates are coming up, and that'll be May 1st to the 3rd. It's an international walking festival that takes place in like 200 cities. North Adams joined that in 2019. We're doing it again. Again, it's May 1st to the 3rd. We're looking, it's a festival, walking festival inspired by the life and legacy of the urban activist Jane Jacobs. We're going to be looking for walk leaders, and we're going to be holding 2 information centers up at the public library on March 17th and March 19th. All Jane's Walks are free, volunteer-led, open to all, non-commercial, and they seek to promote dialogue. So if there's anybody in the city who wants to talk about their city to other people in the city, come join the walking festival. Just as a background, historically, the youngest walk leaders that we had were in Vancouver. They were a set of children, 5 and 8, that led a walk in a park entitled What I Like to Do in the Park. So it can be that simple. So.
All right, thank you. Are you responding to this?
Well, just a quick question, if I may, through the chair. Thank you for doing these. The Jane's Walks that I've participated in have been very, very interesting. Is there a place where the community can go to find more information about the walks on these dates?
On social media, on the Facebook and Instagram page, we do have a website, but you can also go through the international site, which is janeswalks.org, and then it lists all the city. North Adams is one, and that'll link you to our website.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Anything? Oh, yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record, please.
Shannon Santelli, Whitman Street. So I just want to say to Brian's point about whether or not there's education being provided to the children at Cole Grove School. I think that's an excellent idea. I think it's certainly something we should be reaching out to Superintendent Malkus about and see, what, if anything, do they do? Because it's an unsafe place regardless. And to the mayor, thank you for replacing the crosswalks during February school vacation. But Mr. Sapienza, the little boy who was nearly killed there, there was no crosswalk. So there was no crosswalk from November until last week.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Marie McCarran, 106 Pleasant Street. I live directly on the corner of East Main and Pleasant, just where the little boy was hit as well. 17 years ago, my son was also hit by a car in that corner too. So I'm going to I'm a big, Brian, remember that, big advocate for having stop signs, especially in the corner of East Main and Minor Street, because they come right up and they plow right through onto Pleasant Street. I've seen that happen millions of times, and when they do come down Pleasant Street quite fast. So big advocate for more stop signs there.
Right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no hands, thank you all. Mayor's concerns. Mayor Bernard, you have the floor.
3 quick items. First, just a public acknowledgement to, first of all, city staff for a successful Winterfest on February 15th. Community events, public services, inspection services, public safety, contribute to that event. I saw a great number of people downtown. I want to thank the business sponsors, the market vendors, the ice sculpture carvers, including a couple of them who also moonlight as city councilors, who are here this evening, as well as the businesses, the local businesses who participated in the Chowder Fest, including Grazi, MCLA, and AOK, which were recognized with recognition. This Friday, February 28th at 1 p.m. in this room, there will be a census information session hosted by Representative Barrett and Representative Mark. Mark Malloy from Berkshire Regional Planning, who is coordinating countywide complete count efforts, will be here, along with Mark Sabastino, who is the Western Mass representative to the U.S. Census Bureau. So if you're looking for information, if you have questions, if you have concerns about the census, this would be a good time to find out. The census this year will be primarily online. There will still be door-to-door count, but the main mechanism will be online counting, and we just cannot stress enough how important it is for Berkshire County and for Massachusetts that we count every person in our community. And then finally, just a reminder that the presidential primary is Tuesday, March 3rd. The polls at St. Elizabeth will be open from 7 in the morning till 8 at night. Clerk Pedersini, I want to thank you, your team, the poll workers, the election warders, the registrars of voters who I saw in the office today. And then just a note to the community, I think people may have seen this in the press, but early voting is open through Friday, February 28th, here in City Hall at the City Clerk's office during regular business hours.
All right. Thank you very much. Councilor concerns or liaison updates, Councilor Harpen, Blackmer, and Councilor Sweeney, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I have great news. I just want to say that North Adams is definitely a green community. We had the Solarize Mass Plus that went on since the summer until, I believe, just a few weeks ago with Williamstown. And in that time, we have 18 systems and 1 battery storage system that are going to be put in and are actually contracted. So we fell a little bit short to Williamstown, but Williamstown has done this in the past. They actually had 87 systems that are going to be put into Williamstown and 23 battery storage systems. So North Adams is getting there. We got 18 systems coming online throughout the city. And also because North Adams and Williamstown together have met their goal, they are going to, the company that they pick, Solar Flare, is going to donate to a local nonprofit a complete system. I believe it's up to 500 or a half a megawatt. So if you know any nonprofit in North Adams or Williamstown that would be interested in this system, you can go onto the Facebook page of Solarize Mass Plus, North Adams, Williamstown, and you have until Friday to submit a nomination form. So I think this is great energy in North Adams and great green energy. And I just want to give one last shout out to Adam Galambos, because he was the solar coach for North Adams, and he was all over this city promoting this and educating people on solar. So big shout out to Adam.
All right, thank you. Councilor Blackmer.
I just wanted to clarify, the first meeting in April is April 14th.
All right, it is April 14th. Yeah, okay. Councilor Sweeney.
I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more on the latest Traffic Commission meeting. In addition to the communication that was presented tonight, we also had a really robust conversation with folks from the community and the commission about the community, how addressing safety concerns is a really big community involvement, and there was a lot of really great conversations around strategizing how we can bring city and the community and other convening forces together to address some of those larger concerns, and how we can encourage people to behave more safely in our community. So I just wanted to sort of add that as a layer to the conversation, and yeah.
All right, thank you. Councilor Bona, I think you had your hand up.
Yes. A couple things here. One, I do want to apologize to the council tonight. Like I say, it was sort of sprung. It was a surprise about when the discussion came up on the American Legion Drive property. I came into this with the intention of voting on it, but once I heard who the interest was, and so in the past, when I have called these state ethics, they're not always that clear. It's usually if there's an impression of conflict, they always tell you to be sort of more on the caution of the side of not giving that. But you also have the ability to fill out a form and express sort of very transparent what your connection is, and there wasn't time for that, obviously, tonight to do that. That being said, I'd just like to say in the 19 years I've been on council, I've only had to abstain under a half a dozen times due to business conflict, so it's not something that happens often. The other is, we mentioned about liability, and if liability is going to be a concern with buildings that may be abutting city property of bricks falling and stuff, another one that comes to mind is the property on Eagle Street that abuts the Pocket Park, because we do know there are bricks that have fallen off that building, and we have a city park literally right next to it. So I don't know if there's liability on that building or not, and if we're requiring it or saying it has to be on one, again, we should be consistent throughout the city. And then lastly, which has been all over the social media, is obviously we know part of the Hoosick Tunnel has collapsed. And what's interesting about this is I don't know probably nothing of what authority the city has with any of that. So I don't think I'm sure it's all federal and railroad have their own authority. But one of the things I heard is they may possibly dig out the whole tunnel right up to where it collapsed. That being said, that's our historic facade. Do we have any say in that? Does anyone have any say in that? So, will they just replace it with a cement tunnel front? So I just feel like, is there any public input at all? I'm sure railroad buffs around the world would not be happy if that got changed or looked ugly afterwards. But also, on a positive note of that, you got to think about it. On a regular day, trains just sort of go through here, and we probably economically don't make out all that well from it. At the moment, there are about 30 workers up at that tunnel. They're working 12-hour shifts. They're expected to be here for a few months at least. And they are also hiring locals. A gentleman who was supposed to work on one of my apartments today has been hired up there for now for security. So they actually did advertise locally for people to work certain positions up there. And it also is clearly putting income into local restaurants, hotels, gas, fuel. I mean, they're buying food. So think of it as a big construction project in the area that we are benefiting from.
Unique perspective. Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Three things, just kind of points of note for folks. I mentioned this at the last meeting, but I'll mention it again now. The Community Development Subcommittee will be meeting on March 4th. We will be doing a public hearing on short-term rentals that the City Community Development Office has been working on significantly with Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. So that is like a really good meeting to come to if you have concerns around short-term rentals, just emphasizing that doubly down now. Also wanted to mention, reiterating what the mayor was saying around filling out the census, every person that doesn't get counted is $22,000 that we don't get in the next 10 years for this city. So keep that in mind. Every head counts, not just terms and numbers, but actually in dollars and cents. So do your census. And do your other census if you're an artist. The artist census is currently active. I don't know if Jess was going to say, or Councilor Sweeney was going to say this, but the artist census is online. If you are a creative or an artist in North Adams, please fill that out. I don't know the website off the top of my head, but they're trying to capture at least 300 artists in that pool to really capture some useful data going forward. And Ashley, who's out the audience, is a great point person if anyone has questions.
All right, thank you. Councillor LaForest.
The mayor and I had an opportunity to visit the site and speak with the vice president of engineering for Pan Am, and at that time the plan was to, and they were in the process of bringing in many tons of Quikrete to reline the tunnel. I've heard the rumor that there was a consideration of daylighting the first several hundred feet of tunnel ahead of the bedrock, but now that Councilor Bona has brought it up this evening, is it possible through the chair to the mayor to ask if this is something that has been strategized formally, or
around the tunnel entry?
Around daylighting the first several hundred feet?
Okay.
of the tunnel.
Mayor, do you have anything to?
Sure, I can provide a quick update on that. To the best of my knowledge, and this is my most recent knowledge as of earlier today, there is no plan to daylight, or there is no plan that has been put forward to daylight the tunnel. They're continuing their stabilization work. They've continued to remove material. As Councilor Bona said, when you and I were up there, I believe they had mentioned, we were up there on the 15th. They were saying by the 17th or 18th, the work would be done. That was unrealistic.
Sure.
They're continuing to take material out. The engineer's feeling is they'll have a better sense now that they've shored up the tunnel. If they get the material that has fallen onto the tracks out, they'll be able to do a better assessment on the next stage of work. But as of the most recent update I received, there was no discussion and in response to the question, there was no plan to daylight the tunnel.
I'm sure it's much like working on an old house, but thank you for clarifying you always find a new problem, but thank you for clarifying that that's not in the works.
I happened to meet a private contractor who's working on the project who cautioned me, don't believe anything you're reading on social media about this because it's all wrong. So, just that. Councilor Sweeney.
Sorry, I forgot to mention one more thing, that on Saturday at the NORAD Mill, Roots Teen Center is hosting its big annual fundraiser. I'm of the firm belief that when we invest in young people, we can change our economic, substance abuse, a plethora of things that we're experiencing now. So if you have a few dollars extra in your pocket, I really encourage you to go, especially because I can't make it because I'm working and I no longer work for Roots. So please go in my absence.
Councilor Blackmer.
The Northern Berkshire United Way is having their chicken dinner next Thursday, the 5th, that's Thursday, at the Bounty Fair. So please support them. Talk to me if you need more information or a ticket.
Very good. Any final thoughts? Seeing none, but there's no correspondence, that's correct? Then the motion's in order to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.